All right, folks, buckle up. We're diving deep into the wild world of pharmaceuticals. And trust me, this ain't your grandma's medicine cabinet. We're talking about a partnership so big, so crucial, it makes Romeo and Juliet look like a casual Tinder date. That's right, it's the China-India pharmaceutical love story, and spoiler alert, it's complicated. For years, China and India have been the ultimate pharmaceutical power couple. Think of China as the chef, whipping up those essential active pharmaceutical ingredients, those tongue-twisting APIs you see on your pill bottles. Now India's the restaurant, taking those APIs and cooking up affordable generic drugs for the world to swallow. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship, one that's been keeping global healthcare afloat. But like any good drama, there's a plot twist. Remember that whole conscious uncoupling thing Gwyneth Paltrow was on about? Yeah, well, China and India are having a bit of a public separation and the whole world's feeling the aftershocks. This ain't just about business, folks. This is about geopolitics, trade wars, and the fate of millions who rely on affordable medication. This is about the future of global healthcare hanging in the balance. So grab your antacids because things are about to get uncomfortable. Let's talk India, the pharmacy to the world. This ain't no hyperbole, folks. India is a generic drug powerhouse, churning out affordable versions of those name-brand pills that cost an arm and a leg in the West. Think of it as the Walmart of pharmaceuticals, providing low-cost options without sacrificing quality. But here's the catch. India's generic drug empire relies heavily on one key ingredient, APIs, those chemical building blocks of pharmaceuticals, and guess who's been their main supplier? You guessed it, China. It's like India's making all the dough for the pizza, but they need China to supply the yeast. This dependence on Chinese APIs has been a sweet deal for India, allowing them to keep drug prices low and accessible. But as we all know, relying too heavily on one supplier can be risky business, especially when geopolitics throws a wrench in the works. It's like building a house on a foundation of sand. It might look good for a while, but one good storm and the whole thing comes crumbling down. And folks, the storm clouds have been gathering over the Sino-Indian pharmaceutical romance for a while now. Remember that whole conscious uncoupling thing we talked about? Well, it turns out China and India's pharmaceutical breakup wasn't exactly amicable. Think more messy divorce than a clean break. So what went wrong? Well, for starters, China decided it was time to focus on its own pharmaceutical industry. They're no longer content with just being the API supplier. They want a bigger piece of the global pharma pie. Think of it as the sous chef deciding they want to open their own Michelin star restaurant. But it's not just about economic ambition, there's a whole geopolitical chess game at play here. China and India have been locked in a border dispute for decades, and that tension has spilled over into the trade arena. It's like watching two siblings fight over the last slice of cake, except the cake is global pharmaceutical dominance. And let's not forget about trade wars. The US-China trade war, in particular, has thrown a spanner in the works, disrupting global supply chains and forcing countries to rethink their trade dependencies. It's like someone set the global trade system on fire, and everyone's scrambling for a fire extinguisher. The result? China has started tightening the screws on API exports to India, sending shockwaves through the global pharmaceutical industry. It's like suddenly cutting off the flour supply to a bakery. Sure, they can try to find other sources, but it's going to be messy, expensive, and leave a lot of hungry customers. Section 4, the global medicine cabinet in disarray. A post-spat world. So China and India are having a pharmaceutical spat. Big deal, right? Well, here's the thing. This isn't just some regional squabble. This is a global health crisis in the making. Remember how India supplies a huge chunk of the world's generic drugs? Well, with China squeezing the API pipeline, India's production capacity is taking a hit. It's like trying to run a marathon with a sprained ankle. You might be able to limp to the finish line, but it's going to be painful and a lot slower than you hoped. This is especially bad news for developing countries that rely heavily on affordable Indian generics. For them, access to affordable medication is literally a matter of life and death. Imagine being diagnosed with a life-threatening illness and being told the only medication you can afford is suddenly out of stock. That's the reality facing millions around the world. But it's not just developing countries feeling the pinch. The global pharmaceutical supply chain is so interconnected that disruptions in one part of the world ripple out everywhere. Remember the great toilet paper shortage of 2020? Yeah, this could be way worse. Section 5, India's Pharma Future, charting a new course. So, what's India doing about this pharmaceutical predicament? Well, they're not taking this lying down. They're like that scrappy underdog in a sports movie, determined to overcome the odds and prove their doubters wrong. First on the agenda, diversifying their API sources. They're scouting out new suppliers like a frantic shopper on Black Friday, looking for anyone who can provide those crucial chemical ingredients. Think of it as spreading your bets in Vegas. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, especially when that basket is looking a little unstable. But they're not just looking outward, they're also looking inward. India's been ramping up its domestic API production, investing in research and development like never before. It's like that scene in every superhero movie where the hero unlocks their true potential just when all hope seems lost. Will it be enough to completely wean India off Chinese APIs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, the global pharmaceutical landscape is undergoing a seismic shift, and India is determined to come out on top. The stakes are high, the pressure is on, and the whole world is watching. Get your popcorn ready, folks, because this pharmaceutical drama is far from over.